Hello and welcome to the Orion Report. Tonight I'm going to read another article from the website. This one is entitled Religion and Anti-Religion. In the modern era, the secular age, religion, primarily in the West, has declined in popularity. In America, 80+% of people believe in God, in some form or another. But this number has declined from well over 90% in the 1800s and early 1900s. The statistics are much more complex on a global scale, though belief in God is found across the greater part of the planet, and even in most of Europe. Belief is still over 60% and still higher in Eastern Europe. Only about 4% of people in the United States identify as atheists and 5% as agnostic, non-committal. Still, with all this said, organized religion, as traditionally defined, has been diminishing steadily from the advent of the industrial age onward. All one has to do is visit a variety of churches, a different one each week, and you will find that the majority are sparsely attended, even near empty. Ironically, the least popular among Christian sects, from pure observation and experience, are also those that have most liberalized, while the most active churches I've encountered, with growing or steady membership, tend to be more conservative and community-minded individual congregations, those that offer services other than mere sermonizing, food shelves, support and peer groups, educational services, etc. Islam, however, is growing faster than the world population. It is even growing rapidly within supposedly secular Western societies. I believe this is due to the fact that Islam offers an entire lifestyle, with a support network throughout life. It is a political and social viewpoint as much as a religion, with very clear boundaries and defined roles, and is an easily understood teaching. One God, obey God's law, go to heaven, as well as having a rich history and an esoteric depth. Ergo, it is not superficial. It is a refuge for disillusioned Western men and women, especially those who have become antagonistic toward the misandry of feminism. Notions of Trinity and the worship of a human man, the idolatry and plurality of lesser powers, saints and angels in Christian religion, have turned many people off to that faith. The fact that Christianity has increasingly sold out to worldliness has become part of the system of pacification that keeps people obedient to a blatantly godless and amoral world system, stands in stark comparison to Islam, which consistently pushes back against secularist ideals. Yet I've also noticed that humans increasingly religify their political social views, as with so-called wokeism, which is a strange amalgamation of neo-Marxism, Western progressivism, anarchism, technocracy, anti-whiteism, aka racism, Crowleyan and Luciferian spirituality, and moral ideals of Michel Foucault and Alfred Kinsey, and others of their demonic ilk. Though we also see this cultish fanaticism among those who are devoted to Donald Trump and/or the religification of national identity and individual leaders who personify that ideal in general, ergo cultural norms and traditions, often known as identitarians. Like the Crusaders and Inquisitors of old, those who hold passionate religious-like fervor for a political, social worldview are willing to fight and die, kill for their ideological beliefs. Weirder still is the fanatical embrace of police state-like practices by governments over COVID by those on the political left, members of wokeism, as a tool to accomplishing their social, political, climate goals on a grand global scale. I would state clearly that spiritual religions have killed far fewer people in history than secular religions have. Communism versus democracy, fascism versus democracy have claimed hundreds of millions of lives, well after the great religious wars of antiquity had claimed their hundreds of thousands. As of late, we see the most open-minded sorts crying out for the oppression of all who will not conform to the supposed public good, repressing any scientific evidence that counters their fervent and urgent mania to impose a hyped crisis on the world, being used oh so very willingly by elites with a much larger and darker agenda than their foot soldiers care to see. This need to find superiority in one's own set of beliefs, political, social, religious, or philosophical, is perhaps normative, even needful in some pragmatic way. In truth, people find reasons to divide themselves, elevate themselves above others. My philosophy is better than your philosophy. Separate into groups of specialness, and ultimately reasons to fight and kill, dominate and oppress each other. In the Urian sense, worldviews, religions of the mind and or heart, whether political, social, spiritual, or philosophical, are psychic, etheric, astral entities that continually struggle with one another for predominance over the collective unconscious and the souls of humanity, in order to gain control of the future and thus the outcomes of humanity and the earth. In the modern era, there is a great deal of hatred towards spiritual religion in general, and it feels necessary for the issue to be addressed honestly within our forum. Urianism is a religion, after all, albeit small, although it is also a religion that emphasizes the mystical and the metaphysical. To band together, or bind or tie together, is essential. In all things in life, in every cause of angels, demons, elementals, or humans, there is strength in numbers, a need to band together for common interests, especially to effect any real change in society. Religions have acted as the moral conscience of nations from times immemorial. They have acted as social glue, instilling common sensibilities of right and wrong, imprinting consensus behavioral standards, thus increasing unity. More than this, religion gives the common masses a vision, a purpose that is greater than mere flesh and blood, the dreams of eternity and the hope thereof, thus elevating the meaning of our often dreary and difficult existence overall. Secular religion, political religions, lack a transcendent element and are purely rooted in the temporal. Their promises are ultimately empty, shallow, and without enduring hope for the soul. Democracy, republics, tend to emphasize the value of the individual, deifying liberty, while collectivist or communistic types of ideologies diminish the individual, viewing singular people as cogs in the machine, and deifying the greater good. I've heard it said recently that religion is secularized metaphysics. Urianism is an attempt to create a metaphysical, universal monotheism with a kingdom view rather than a worldview, to elevate society to the divine in an almost Platonic concept. The benefits of religion itself are many, but we have always sought members who were intent to live their faith through devotions to the divine, establish a mystical personal relationship with spirit, and thus find the guidance of Pistis Sophia, divine wisdom, in their lives. I've seen the path transform people into highly functional and fully matured individuals, though we rarely talk about this, caught up in the current events as we become. I would note that many who talk about hating religion then glorify Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism, Eastern religions, because they are under the delusion that such religions are okay with certain behaviors monotheistic religions reject. This is completely false, as traditional Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism tend to frown on the same moral transgressions that Western religions frown upon. As many Christian and Jewish sects are increasingly pandering to popular culture, so you see this also among sects that are of Asian origin. Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism are religions, no less than Western religions, with their own prejudices, their own sense of being truer than all others, and their own sense of right and wrong, as well as their own historical atrocities and inhumanities. Indeed, I've encountered many extremely hateful evangelizing atheists over the years whose life and purpose is centered around their anti-religious religion. It is their entire meaning and worldview, and thus the spirit that governs their souls. It must also be said that if you think only Catholic priests are molesting kids, you'd be a complete fool. Child molesters have infiltrated every religion, every institution and sector of society, and are most often the members of one's own family. Indeed, there are entire secret societies, the Finders Cult, usually holding Luciferian ideals, centered on trafficking children. Urians, however, are clearly commanded to deal with molesters harshly if found in our own ranks. In the sense of Neoplatonism, Stoicism, and original Gnosticism, our ideal is elevation, both of the self and society, the reunion of heaven and earth, a new golden age. This cannot be achieved without unity, consensus, a common ideal, staying on the same page, as it were. And thus Urianism is religious in nature, a worldview, which is to say a spirit that contests for the future of humanity, which we call the light and fire of God, or the Spirit. To unite around a common ideological vision or worldview, kingdom view, is religious, yet the goal is metaphysical, that is to say, the transcendence of humankind to majesty, or epicness. And that is the article. It's a great article. I encourage you to go read it for yourself at www.urianism.com under the heading of General in the forum. The title is, once again, Religion and Anti-Religion. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.